Good morning, everyone. So we'll have our last plenary panel of the summit right now, and we will be discussing the future of carbon credits and of the removals and carbon farming activities. I'm Daniel Zimmer from Climate Kick. And I have the pleasure to invite to the stage Anneli Lundmark, who is from Sweden and is the CEO of the Nordic Natur Capital. So she will be representing here forestry business models and also how to integrate biodiversity in these business models. Anneli. Anna Ubachs is Senior Carbon Project Developer at AECO, in Germany, and she represents in the panel the peatlands and the rewetting of peatlands. Lucia Perugini, she's a Senior Expert on Carbon Farming Certification and LULUCF at the European Environmental Agency in Denmark. So Lucia will be here to talk about the connections between the CRCF and the LULUCF registries reporting of the countries. John Brosnan is the bioeconomy executive for the Irish Cooperative Organisation Society, ICOS. Welcome, John. John is also the chair of the Primary Producers Working Group of the Circular Bioeconomy Europe joint undertaking. John represents here at the same time with agriculture and the bioeconomy dimensions, and also the country of Ireland that is developing an interesting carbon farming policy. Thomas Lundmark is Professor Emeritus of Silviculture and CEO of Carbon Capture Company in Sweden. So we have two Lundmarks in this panel, both associated with the forestry issue. They will tell us a bit more of what they are doing. And finally, Christian Holzleitner, I guess you have seen him before. He's the head of the unit for land economy and carbon removals at DG Climat in the Commission. So welcome, everyone. So as I explained to you, our objective in this panel is to look first of all across sectors, so the three main areas that we have been exchanging on in the summit, the peatlands, the forestry and the agriculture, but very much what we are trying to do in this panel is to look at the future. What does the future look like? How do we anticipate the evolution on the supply side of carbon certificates, on the demand side, but also how we can take a broader picture, looking at also the LULUCF policies, how is CRCF contributing to the objectives of the European Union in terms of carbon removals, and how important this is for our climate policy. We will also try as much as possible to take stock of all the conversations we have had during the summit, because while we are discussing a bit about the future, we are also in the back of our minds starting to think, what are we going to discuss in the next summit, which will be also a presentation for the next session, where we will introduce to you the next stages and steps for the summit. So we'll start now with a quick round, where I would like to ask you in 2 minutes to tell us why you are here and what you are doing and what was your interest in the summit in a short period of time, please.
All right. Hey everyone, my name is Anneli Lundmark, as Daniel said. And we are, if I very quickly describe us. So we're a Swedish company. We're based in Sweden, and we're project developers, as well as we help companies invest in the carbon credits that we sell. So we're working within the improved forest management. Yeah, our products allows company to invest in climate solutions that not only support resilient forests, but also contributing to building larger or higher standing stocks in the forest. I was here, or not here, but I was in Dublin last year, and I'm very happy to see that we have brought in buyers and the market perspective into these discussions. And it has been a pleasure to be here these three days to listen and find the inspiration from all of you. So I'm very happy to see how this discussion will, where it will lead, and I hope that we can wrap it up very good, and especially looking at the market and the buyer's perspective. So yeah, and thanks for inviting me to the panel.
Thank you. Anna?
Yes. Hi everyone, my name is Anna Ubachs, and on this panel I'm representing the peatlands. So my role is I'm the carbon project developer at AECO, and AECO is a peatland project developer and financer in Europe. We work in Germany, Poland, Latvia and Lithuania. And yeah, what we do is we manage the development, the implementation, the monitoring of restoration projects in peatlands. So we take care of everything. And we enable that through carbon finance. We are also exploring the potential of nature credits and like the marketing of other ecosystem services, but our main business currently is built around carbon. Our mission for this relatively young project category of peatlands is to build a peatland restoration industry, how we like to call it. So we really want to scale that project category and work as one of the leading collaborative project developers in the peatland sector. And yeah, so I am representing a practitioner's view on this panel, and so we are trying to kick off the supply side as AECO in the peatlands, and we're building the machinery to do so, to be able to scale up. So we're investing in standardization of the whole project development process. We're investing in software and tech to really support this vision of a peatland restoration industry. Thanks. Looking forward to the discussion, and thanks for having me.
Thanks. Lucia?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Lucia Perugini, as you can read, not anymore, from the panel from the European Environment Agency. I'm here representing an agency which is actually the core activity of my unit is to quality check the greenhouse gas inventory from member states and compile the European greenhouse gas inventory. So it's a huge work that we're doing every year, involving 40 people. And we are at our heart is the quality of this inventory, also improving the inventory from member states, and how this framework, the CRCF, can also contribute, but also vice versa, how the inventory can contribute to improve or to support the CRCF inventory, CRCF framework. So this is I mean, we will also have an incremental role in this framework, supporting the implementation, supporting the Commission into the implementation, also with this system of verification of models and collecting as much as possible models in use and then make it available, verifying their robustness and then make it back available. But also on the other side, improving stimulate the improvement of the models that are in use in the inventory that can be also used back in the CRCF. So this is, I think I covered. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Thank you, Daniel. Good morning, everybody, and it's great to be here with you this morning. Thanks for the invitation. So my name is John Brosnan. I work for ICOS, and as I was reminded last night, there is more than one ICOS, so I better make it clear that it's the Irish Cooperative Organisation Society rather than the Carbon Observatory. I thought I had found some new colleagues last night when I met other people from ICOS, but it was the other ICOS. So just to make that clear. So I'm representing really the cooperative view, the primary producer view. So we are as I say, the national umbrella or representative body for cooperatives, and I think we're at a very exciting juncture at the moment of the CRCF, and we're getting to the stage where we're mobilising, and we're getting to the stage where we're, you know, an earlier speaker mentioned where we're facing the market now, and we're looking at the Buyers Club. And this for me is what's really exciting. So our members are drawn from dairy cooperatives. We have some forestry cooperatives, smaller marine and fishery cooperatives as well. So it's the primary sector across the board. And as you mentioned as well, Daniel, I know chair this newly formed CBEJU Primary Producers Working Group, which seeks to increase the involvement of and the benefits from the bioeconomy for primary producers and their cooperatives. And I see this as really being a vehicle to really kickstart the bioeconomy. The bioeconomy gives an opportunity to harvest carbon and maintain it, you know, into the future rather than seeing it released into the atmosphere. And what I'd really like to see is how we monetize that and how we create a multiple bottom line for primary producers and cooperatives here, that we're not just price takers for food and feed and fibre into the future, but the real value that we deliver in harvesting carbon and maintaining carbon rather than releasing it to the atmosphere, reducing emissions, continuing to produce food, continuing to produce fibre, continuing to produce high value chemicals and materials into the future, that we have these this way of not only avoiding the use of fossil fuels, also harvesting carbon and continuing to produce food and fibres in a way that does no significant harm. And that's what really excites me about the opportunity we have here today. Is just how we do it is the next question. So that's looking forward to the discussion and hearing from everybody else this morning.
Thank you. Thomas.
Okay, yeah, and thank you for inviting me as well. And hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Lundmark. I am a retired professor of silviculture. I have been in the academia for quite a while. But now I am the CEO of a carbon capture company. It's a company that has been developing over time, but now we have been focusing on developing a standard and methodology for active forest management in Sweden, or you can say in Scandinavia, really trying hard to understand and align with the CRCF and the upcoming delegated act or methodology for improved forest management, because I mean, active forest management in Sweden, it's done on more than 20 million hectares out of the 28 million hectares of forest that we have, so it's really important. Forestry has been a cornerstone of the Swedish economy for a long time, at least the last 100 years. So this is a very interesting and significant option for forests to the forest sector to develop new revenue streams and to finance a build-up of a future carbon stock or standing stock, so that we can not only contribute to the climate benefit but also the important co-benefits that we can see that are related to a more resilient forest, but also hopefully we can design the methodologies so that the increased standing stock will also result in higher productivity, and by that support the growing bioeconomy, as you mentioned. And this will be a challenge, but as we used to say, that I think we all agree upon that behind every challenge there is at least one or several opportunities, and this is what we are struggling for to find. And very much of my time in Sweden, it's related to travel around to discuss with large and small forest owners that wants to understand more about what Christian is making up. It's a really significant interest how to benefit from what CRCF can offer us in the future.
Thank you, Thomas. Christian.
Yes, hi. I'm Christian. I'm the policy guy, and together with Valeria and our team in Brussels, we are trying to create a voluntary carbon market that can work for all what you are doing, what you've been describing, so that we can get a healthy, resilient bioeconomy by 2040, 2050. And if you hear me talking more often, I'm always into this. I'm very bullish about the bioeconomy, because once we don't have any more the fossil fuel and the fossil carbon, we still need carbon, and we need it from the bioeconomy. And it's one of the big competitive advantages that we have in Europe, because we have very good natural assets in our soils, in our forests, and we need to invest into that. And what we try to do is we want to be helpful for you to create that market. And we do this together with Lucia, with Suzanne and their team at the EEA, with Panos and his colleagues at the JRC, and of course also with Tjerk and his colleagues in DG Agri, so that we can really create there a market that can be helpful for all of you. And I think we will now dive deeper into the issues that we have ahead of us. Maybe one last thing to say is, I think what is particularly important for this year and the coming months is that at the end of 26, the European Commission will come with a big energy and climate package, where we will have a new proposal on the Renewables Directive, where we'll have a new proposal on the 2040 climate targets. Overall, the European Commission, the European Parliament, our member states have agreed on the 90% target. And there we'll set carbon removal targets for member states, emission reduction targets, and of course, the emission reductions that we can deliver from agriculture, the non-CO2 emissions, fertilizers, livestock, and the carbon removals that we can have across the whole value chain, from growing the biomass and food over long-lasting products, at the end to biochar and bio-CCS, will be key. And if we can tell the policymakers in our capitals, in Brussels, look, there is a market solution for that, and it will make it much easier for you to reach those targets. This can be a very powerful message that can also come from this summit here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. So I just want to say that in terms of panel moderation, I don't expect you to speak one after one, but do not hesitate to react to each other views. We also want to give you the floor, and we will have a Menti work cloud first, and you can also then ask a number of questions on the Menti. You scan. There will be 2 Mentis. So this is the first one, which is around the question on the supply side of carbon certificates. So, and there will be a second one for the second part, which will be around the demand for carbon certificates, and always with this objective of how do you see the future? Not really now, but in the future. How is the supply going to evolve, and what are the barriers to this supply? And then what are the barriers to increasing demand? So with this, and so we will have these 3 parts, one on the supply side, one on the demand side, and then we will go to a broader, take a step back and look at the connections between CRCF, the policies, and the bigger objectives that we have in Europe. So we start with on the supply side, and I would like to ask, so at least the 3 sectors, peatlands, forests, agriculture, bioeconomy, to tell us about a bit about how you see the barriers to the supply side, and what do we need to do still in the future to increase on the supply side, and what are the issues that remain on the table from what we heard and from your own experience. Who wants to start? Anna.
Yeah, okay. Yes, so I mean, if I look at the Menti, there's the demand, which is the barrier to the supply side. And I think speaking from the peatlands, there is no supply, no real supply of peatland carbon projects out there on the market. Of course, there's initiatives in the UK, there's a few maybe in Europe, you find something in Ireland, but there's not so much. So the biggest barrier for us as a project developer is, first of all, convincing land stewards that what we do together is trustworthy and that they will actually see money from that. So I think for us this is currently the biggest barrier of like convincing or like partnering together with the land stewards, explaining to them what it means and explaining to them the voluntary carbon market, that there will be actually additional revenues on their farming practices. So this is one. And then we are not, like at the moment for peatlands, we're not so fearful about the demand side. We work on the hypothesis that for peatlands, as like a very specific project category, we hope demand will come up. We first have to fix the supply side, so and get that really going and lower all the barriers, because there's also incredible high investment costs. Like it's a significant change to your land if you do an intervention of peatland rewetting, and you need money for that. You need money for the excavators who go there and close all the ditches. You need costs for, you need money to do the technical planning. You need money to go into the whole permission phase. So there's quite a lot of barriers, and yeah, we are really trying to tackle all of these to bring that into like a standardized process that it becomes more easy and scalable. So,
Thank you.
who wants to go?
Anneli, on the forest side.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, I operate in the interface between landowners and the buyers. So I see both the ambition but also the hesitations from the buyers, and I will jump on the train that Anna got on the demand side, and it was just interesting to see that I think Trump flew by as well, which reminds us there's an outside world within these walls. So, and looking at the barriers, I believe, and from our standpoint, it's less about the technical potential, and it's more about the credibility and the system clarity. So I would say the first barrier is credibility itself. The buyers are actually, the credibility is not an added value, it's the product itself. They are buying trust. And I'm sure we're gonna go into that, what the CRCF can help us with building that trust and building the framework, of course. But they are not just purchasing carbon. They are buying the trust, and that means that we need robust standards, we need to be transparent, yeah, we need clear monitoring as well. And I think the second barrier is also the uncertainty when it comes to the rules and the laws. Since the European framework is still evolving, there are some, at least from a Swedish perspective, some uncertainty. How can we claim the product? How can we claim the investment? How can we talk about it? How can we use it? How do we report it? Companies often ask themselves that it's not only is the product good enough today, but will it stand like the test of time and evaluation throughout the multiple years? So will it be good even in the future? And the last one is risk perception. Let's say in this market, the companies and the buyers are not only assessing the product if it's good, they are themselves being assessed. So we need to help them and find ways for them to, in what framework can they work with for it to be, as you said, possible.
I think you are covering indeed quite a lot of this, of the words that we see here. John, on your side, and coming from the Irish also government, maybe you had on the Irish a ministry that is also trying to develop a carbon farming program. How do you see this and on the supply side in Ireland?
Far be it from me now to speak for the Irish government, but
from your experience,
from my experience of interacting with I can see some Irish government representatives smiling back at me from the floor. So I better be careful what I say here.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, the words are in front of us, as has been previously alluded to. Supply is driven by demand, and it's driven by. I mean, I think we have certainly some good examples in Ireland of projects which could be expanded, or ideas that could be expanded on. We have existing, even outside of the compliance world, or outside of the existing agri-environmental schemes or afforestation schemes or agroforestry schemes, which are all good and are all supporting the right things. We also have sustainability schemes that are market-led, that are being, even our own dairy processing, dairy exporting cooperatives have their own sustainability schemes that are starting to reward farmers for certain actions and so on, which is helping to shape policy as well, because we can see that farmers and foresters want to do what fits well with their existing and future anticipated practices. And not only, and I think Christian and I briefly discussed it before we came onto the stage, not only are we developing a carbon farming framework for Ireland, we're also developing at the moment a draft bioeconomy strategy. So I spend a lot of my time sitting on committees. I represent Copa Jake on the expert group on carbon farming. I'm on the carbon farming implementation group with the Irish government, and also the bioeconomy stakeholders forum as well, which is developing the draft bioeconomy strategy. So I see government strategy in Ireland, or government policy, evolving to a more joined up way, or interdepartmental or cross government departments and ministries. That approach of integrating the environmental to the Department of Environment, the environmental objectives, the objectives of the Department of Agriculture, even the bioeconomy and so on, it's all crossing several government departments and sectors. It's not perfect, there are still silos, but they're being broken down slowly. But I see a more joined up approach. And even when you look at European policy and you look at the release of the bioeconomy strategy last November, it mentions the Buyers Club for the first time, and for the first time in such an important document anyway, at least. So you can see the confluence between carbon farming and CRCF and the bioeconomy, and you can see that in member states like Ireland. I think we're starting to put all of that into place. Far from perfect. From a farmer perspective, we need to see a lot more, and from a forester's perspective, things that we can work with into the future that are not going to impede farmers' incomes, that are not going to impede, am I potentially locking myself up into some lower form of productivity into the future? Like, we don't want to see people looking at it that way negatively. We want to see them looking at it in a very, very positive way into the future. But to answer your question, I think, and without falling into any pitfalls with government officials, I do think we're moving in the right direction. But there's a lot more we can do in incentivising, and I think we need to be a bit more brave and can take a little sandbox or pilot approach, which is what we are doing a little bit. You have things like EIP, European Innovation Partnerships and so on, that allow a little bit of experimenting, but we need to be a little bit more brave in how we go out there with that.
You are alluding to a question that I think has come up quite a lot during the summit, which is carbon versus biodiversity, water, etc. And I remember in our preparation, in our discussions, you mentioned also that in Ireland, the carbon in a number of cases is not enough for actually incentivizing transformation, because there is already quite some carbon in the soils in Ireland, and so you would need to also go toward other co-benefits. But there has been a number of discussions about this. Should this be combined? Should we combine progressively the biodiversity credits with water credits, with carbon credits, or should these be different credits? And how do you see this debate? And did you hear something also that is important here for the audience on how do we see on this in the future?
Look, I certainly don't envy Christian and Valeria and your colleagues' job in making a framework that suits 27 member states, because it is very difficult. In the case of Ireland, we have a lot of livestock farming. We only have 6% land area devoted to arable, so a lot of grassland, a lot of soils that have high carbon stocks already. So we are looking forward to emissions reductions coming into scope, very, very much livestock emissions reductions coming into scope. It will make it far more relevant, and manure management and all of that, and seeing Renewer as another enabler, another joined up initiative, that will help. But then to answer your core question around the co-benefits, yes, I would like to see them stacked from the point of view of the MRV piece, so that we can carry out the MRV efficiently. We can do all of the measurements around soil carbon, above ground biomass, species indicators, water quality, whatever it is we need to measure, that we do all of that at once. However, when we're market facing, I think we should have the ability to separate those elements, because having co-benefits which are as valuable or sometimes more valuable than the carbon itself, I would just have a concern that maybe into the future they will be taken for granted a little bit as automatically going with the credit. And especially if we're talking about voluntary credits being utilised both in the inset and offset market. So you may have some insetting purchasers who may place significant value in the biodiversity, but you may have offsetting opportunities whereby the carbon element might be of greater value to one particular purchaser, but the biodiversity elements might be of a higher value to another. So the net value created might be higher by separating them from a market-facing point of view. I also think we need to come up with a metric, because we have one for carbon. We have 1 ton of carbon is 1 certificate, right? There is no 1 ton of biodiversity, but we have 1 hectare, right? That's something at least. Yeah. So 1 hectare of biodiversity, but how do we grade that? Because there are different indicators for different geographies, different pedoclimatic zones, different management practices for forest management versus grassland versus arable versus, all of the different instances. So how do we grade that in a way that can be internationally traded? And I think that's very important. And if you look to our friends in the UK and how they sell land, for instance, that have done so for decades, they grade land based on the productive capacity. So you've grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. Why can't we grade land for biodiversity? So you have a unit of biodiversity based on area plus grading, and then now we have something marketable that we can all agree on. And I think that's what the CRCF has done. It's created a level of certainty that we can all agree on, a certain standard and a certain methodology. We need to do the same for biodiversity, I think, taking a natural capital approach, doing it the right way. And I know it won't be perfect. I think we can all agree perfect is the enemy of the good, and we need to move quickly, and that's what I would like to see. So that's a long way of answering the question. And we had a quick preparatory call. It was meant to be 20 minutes. It ended up being closer to 90, I think. So you can see what happened. I'm a dangerous man to ask a question of. But I do think, just to sum up, stacking at the MRV level to improve efficiency, but separating at the market level. That's what I'd be in favour.
Yeah. Another aspect of integration is in the forestry sector is the integration between forests and wood, for instance. And Thomas, maybe have you some thoughts about integrating these two, because they are also now in the CRCF, and so how do we ensure that if you harvest more, you also go to more credits in the wood sequestration or carbon sequestration in wood products?
Yeah, I think you are touching upon a very important issue here. I mean, it's we were talking about something that what can be limiting the supply side of credits, and Christian, he mentioned that we need both to meet the climate goals in terms of capturing and removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, but also we need the tool of using more green carbon to replace the black carbon. And it's a bit, in the short term, it's a conflict between harvesting more and storing more. So this is, of course, important to consider the short-term and the long-term perspectives. I mean, the forestry is like an oil tanker, if you allow me to use that comparison. But it's not easily changed. Most of the trees that will be harvested within the next 10, 20, 30 years, they are already in the forest. So it's a long-term business here. So we have to think both in the short term and in the long term. In the shorter term, we have to make sure that we safeguard the carbon sink that we already have. If possible, it should be increased, but it should be done in a way that it secures what we have said so many times at different seminars. It has to secure the long-term productivity of the forests, and it must create resilient forests. So in a way, this needs a much more active forest management, and a way of course, reducing this competition between harvesting or increasing standing stock is to include the value of the carbon stored in forest products. If we have a certified, you can say, if you have a carbon certified forest, it means that there is some kind of net carbon removal in that forest. But it also means that whatever is harvested from this is just a transfer of a carbon stock that could have been in the forest, but now it goes into products. So it has at least an equal value, and it can have a longer permanence depending on what kind of products it results in. And I think it was Juri Kradic, he presented earlier today a very interesting narrative that if we start to think about the trees as kind of carbon dioxide vacuum cleaners, they are actually capturing the carbon from the atmosphere, and it's turned into carbohydrates in living biomass. And this can either be stored in the forest, or it can be harvested and placed into harvested wood products. And at the end of their life, when they come to the possibility of with the end of life, what are we doing then? Then we retrieve the sun energy that is captured in this, and instead of releasing the carbon dioxide out to the atmosphere and claim that it's a circular system, we turn it into a linear system, and by the help of bioenergy, carbon capture and storage, we get rid of that carbon. So then it's the role of the manager is to keep the vacuum cleaner in good condition.
Mm-hmm. Christian, do you have some comments on what you have heard so far?
Yeah, maybe one reflection on also this discussion on carbon markets, biodiversity markets, and so on. I don't think that the carbon market is an objective in itself. It's a means to get finance, private finance, but also public finance, for the investments that we need now for a more resilient, healthier bioeconomy. And we should use the carbon market as much as possible to get the finance now, to do the right things, also for the biodiversity. So this is why we've taken quite a lot of care in the CRCF methodology to be very open to new forms of methodologies, how to quantify, qualify biodiversity benefits. And the big advantage is if you keep carbon as a currency, you can have a qualitative assessment of the biodiversity. So you can save a lot on monitoring costs. And you can get started. Like peatlands are a prime example of where carbon and biodiversity go very well hand in hand. And we should tap into this first. I think the same for forestry, agroforestry, and so on. So let's first look at the win-win solutions. Let's look at that, what we can do within CRCF. And of course, our colleagues in DG Environment are looking at how to develop the nature credits for the long term. But this shouldn't prevent us from using what we can have now with the carbon market to draw in as much investment as possible, because we need the investments now. As Thomas, as you also said, forests are a big ship, and it takes a long time that we turn them around. So we cannot, and I think for soils that's also true. So we cannot wait too long until we define the perfect biodiversity product, where we need to get now the investments for the bioeconomy that we need in 2050. I'll come back to that point, because we need both. We need a healthy bioeconomy, so we probably need more biomass, but we also need more biodiversity, more carbon stored in our soils, in our forests, because otherwise we will not have an effective economy in 2050. And we need to build on that, particularly in the current geopolitical circumstances. As I said before, these are the biggest assets that we have.
Thank you. I think there is another dimension. Oh, Anneli, I give you the floor. Just which is the difference between insetting and offsetting, also, which is a bit hidden in all this. I suggest we keep it for the demand side, but Anneli, quickly.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to reflect on what has been said, and I think we can't really. You will hear me say this multiple times, but we can't exclude like the market perspective of this. So on the one hand, of course, integrating and land does not operate in silos. It's clearly interconnected. But I think we have to be careful not to overload the individual projects with too many objectives. If we do that, there's a risk of slowing down capital mobilization, which, Christian, we need it now, and capital also need clarity. So I think that would be my input in this, to keep it clear for the buyers, so they know what they buy, and of course the landowners.
Yeah. Very good segue to the second part, which is on the demand side. Can we have the second mentee? The demand side is really what we need to focus on, and we have heard this already from the presentation from the DG from DG Klima, Kurt, on the first day. How do we ensure that we progressively create a market where there is a demand, and that demand is responding to a good supply, trustful supply? Again, same question as before. How do you see the demand evolve in the future in your respective sectors? How do you see it already now, today? What is emerging? Is it promising? And are there also barriers that should be addressed? Yeah, how could we unlock the demand? Who wants to start? Anna, you start again, or?
Yes, I can start, of course. So the barriers for the demand side, I think for peatland, I think having trust in the market and the mechanism would help for sure, because the voluntary carbon market is a bit shaky. It's a bit in crisis, let's say. And an institutional backbone like the CRCF, at least we as peatland project developers, we hope that it will actually create kind of trust in the market, and then also more appetite for buyers. But again, I think coming from the peatlands, I can speak a bit more about the supply side, because the effect of the CRCF will also be important for land stewards who are actually then agreeing to rewetting their land, because there is like this European mechanism that is behind that as an institutional backbone. So
could you tell us also maybe what is insetting versus offsetting in peatlands? Is it mostly offsetting that is of interest, or?
Yes, we explored the potential of insetting, but for peatlands it doesn't really work, because if you think of a dairy company who is having their cows grazing somewhere for their milk production, and then they want to kind of, it's more like a shifting of the value chain. Or let's not take the dairy company, let's take a packaging company who wants to change the packaging biomass into sourced from rewetted peatlands. They would have to shift their value chain into rewetted peatlands. And from an insetting perspective, as far as I understood, this doesn't work. So it has to be a change within the same value chain, and it cannot be a shift towards rewetted peatlands. So I think there's a bit
Yeah, we I think we have a big hero here.
Yes, so I'm heading over maybe to Christian.
Who wants to continue on the forestry side? Anneli or Thomas? Yeah. Thomas. Okay.
Yeah, I think I've forgotten your question, Daniel, so I'm going to answer my own question in this. We can, from a Swedish perspective, we can see 3 types of buyers, potential buyers. We have the large companies with ambitious climate goals and strategies, quite often net zero strategies. They are might be science-based targets and so on. We have the second category would be the companies in hard-to-abate sectors, and we also have the smaller companies who might be, not saying that the others are not, but value-driven actors with maybe shorter decision-making processes. So these are all potential buyers, but the question that we are faced with is, if carbon credits are such a promising tool to reach our climate goals, why is the market not flying? What is, why are buyers so hesitant and cautious about this? And at the same time, we're also introducing the second generation of carbon credits within the CRCF framework, which is, I mean, we're facing the challenges like any new emerging markets. So we have to really understand, I think, at least from the buyer's perspective in this, and I've been talking about the reputational risk as well, and that companies are afraid of the greenwashing risk, of course, when communicating about their investments. So I think we need to put a lot of efforts and, of course, help the Commission there. How can we, I know we had the Green Claims Directive, which is not really moving forward, we'll see, but yeah, we can work on that to make the market fly.
Mm-hmm. Thomas?
Yeah, I think that what's not here on the screen, it's when I am traveling around in Sweden and I discuss this with providers, with landowners, small or big, the one question that I always get is, who is going to buy this and why are they going to buy this? What can they claim? Because it comes with opportunity costs. You have upfront costs if you want to change your management strategy, and they don't see clearly. They don't see clearly why the buyers should invest in carbon credits, which means that they are hesitating if will there be a market and will there be a long-term market. So this is something I think that, but you are working quite hard with this at Klima at the moment, so it will be sorted out. But it's really important that we create some kind of trust also in the future market. And of course the Buyers Club is the first step, and we need a second step and a third step, and then we have a market that is flying.
John, you are working with a number of companies in the joint undertaking. What is your also take on this question, and what would make the demand flow and support the initiative?
Yeah, I think it was alluded to earlier on about the Green Claims Directive being slightly later than advertised, or being maybe watered down, or what have you. That will have an impact, is having an impact. CSRD being slightly less than what was expected, or later than what was expected, that will have an impact on demand. So compliance-led demand, to a degree, would be less for voluntary credits. But I think the opportunity to use credits, and I think one of our own members had made this clear on a number of occasions to us, including publicly, I think to yourself, Christian, at an event recently, is in setting. So if you are a food processor, in our case, cooperative food processors owned by family farmers from around the country, whose primary objective is to process food and deliver value back to those farming families who own the business. It's a balancing act between bearing in mind that we're living in an era of significant inflation, and food inflation in particular, as to what consumers are willing or able to pay for food, and in particular for the benefits associated with particular brands, that those claims are being made. So are there other ways to create value? And one of the ways is, can we, as food processors who are involved in industrial ETS and are making significant payments to ETS, at the moment they can't utilize voluntary credits, as part of meeting those obligations. That would certainly create a demand immediately overnight for some of those cooperatives and other food processors and so on as well. I do think that would help. It's obviously complicated. I know we're talking about the future here today, so I know the objective, and rightly so, is the perfect not being the enemy of the good. Let's get out of the traps. Let's get something done and ready. I fully agree with that. But I think what we're working towards is important as well, and we need to be keeping that in mind. And I do think that will help with demand as well, because it's all well and good to say consumers will pay extra for this or that or the other. If you want to see the matching of intentions versus real behaviour, if you look at the Oscars, which took place on Sunday night, I saw on Twitter there was a picture of the auditorium after the event when it was vacated by all of the A-list Hollywood celebrities who tell us about how to, use less, waste less, and manage the environment, and the whole place is littered with packaging. So what people say in public is very different to how they behave in private in their purchasing choices as well. So we have to bear that in mind in a highly unstable inflationary environment. So we have to find other ways of creating demand that mixes obligations as well. And I think the bioeconomy is an opportunity for that. So this idea of creating obligations on suppliers or producers of fossil-based products or chemicals or materials or whatever it is, to blend a minimum percentage bio-based or use a minimum percentage bio-based in their value chain. It's a way of spreading that cost across the value chain in a way which, either consumers can't opt out of, or it's not unfairly adding to inflation in consumers' pockets, and at the same time it's not coming out of the public purse. There might be a way. It will be a mix of instruments over time. We will have to, and what we're doing, and rightly so, we are experimenting and we are taking a bit of a gamble here, and that's what we have to start doing, and I think it's the right thing to do. But it's, where is the future taking us? I think we have to just, it's a bit like the DJ with all of those kind of sliders, you have to kind of push up and down to get the mix right over time. I think that's something we'll have to concentrate on.
Yes, and having a bit of compliance in the system. Thomas, we also exchanged on this. Would you like to also say a few words on this, and how this could be done? What are the creative ideas that could be tested?
Yeah, I know what you are thinking about. I mean, we have been discussing it a lot in Scandinavia, the possibility of how could it be possible to include some carbon credits in the upcoming ETS system, and what would that give for effects. But I discussed it with Christian yesterday, and you said that it's probably not possible during this commission, but it might be possible in the next commission. And of course, if the ETS system, if the pressure remains by 95% or something like that, and you allow 5% to be nature-based carbon credits, that will create some flexibility in the ETS system and among the actors, of course, but it would really get the carbon market going, because then we get also a very stable demand. But I think this will probably be discussed more. I have heard several other speakers touching upon this. We will see how it develops, but it would be a fantastic opportunity if it could be combined in a way so it doesn't result in lowering the efforts of the very important ETS system. And I think it's discussed, is it today and in Brussels, the ETS, the coming ETS. I know that the Swedish government is quite keen on maintaining efficient ETS, so we don't want to dilute it in any way. But I think that including some share of nature-based carbon credit could actually be beneficial also for a coming ETS system. But we will see.
Mm-hmm. And we talked a lot also during the summit on the BIOS Club. What came out of the conversations, you remember that Kurt also asked us to come up with creative solutions to support the BIOS Club. Do you have any comments, any suggestions from the conversations in the past days? No? John, any ideas? You mentioned it already a bit.
Yeah, I hate hogging the microphone. I feel a bit guilty. Yeah, I guess those types of, as I mentioned, obligation schemes that seem to have worked well in the bioenergy sector. So I think, and actually, you just reminded me of a conversation I had with somebody out in the lobby earlier on this morning. We've had one of the most successful common policies we've had across Europe has been the Common Agricultural Policy. It's been there since the Treaty of Rome, basically since 1958 or whenever that was. And if we look back at the instruments that were successful in that, so the objectives, first of all, were in a post-war era, it was on productivity, safe, affordable, abundant food for the population of Europe in the post-war era. And we were hugely successful in that. If you think of all the technological advancement, rightly or wrongly fossil-based, a lot of it, but we achieved the objectives. Much fewer people are in food poverty today than they were back then. Food is available, it's far more healthy, we have standards and so on, and we've improved environmental standards through CAP as well over time. Unfortunately, that budget has been cut significantly, so we can't rely on CAP as an instrument on its own to deliver on these objectives. But what I am saying is some of the learnings from CAP, what shaping and controlling policies and objectives and instruments were used in CAP to so successfully deliver on those objectives. If you think about it, like all of the research and innovation that came as a result of that general approach and policy, how we can now utilize those same instruments but for different objectives, and we have to tweak them a little bit. And I think what we've learned from bioenergy, for example, in obligation schemes, I know like in Ireland we have transport fuel and renewable heat obligation schemes, as I mentioned and alluded to earlier. They've been successful in, yes, they have slightly elevated the price of those fuels, but they've also been successful in creating demand and putting a floor on those particular products and in the production of them. And bioenergy is very, very important in that, and I'm not a major fan of it's down at the bottom of that cascading pyramid, but high TRL, high volume activities can become the focus for complementary technologies, conversion technologies around that. So you end up with what my real passion is to see co-owned regional biorefineries, not just all around Ireland, but all around Europe. And we coalesce those around proven high TRL technologies. So for instance, you could have biomethane as a core technology, producing biofertilizer. You're biorefining your feedstocks, extracting high value proteins, volatile fatty acids and so on, before, during the digestion process, and then you're upgrading your biofertilizer to Renewer standards, and suddenly you locate a biochar plant, you co-locate a pyrolysis unit, you co-locate other maybe lignin related technologies, conversion technologies on the same sites. So suddenly you're aggregating, and the ultimate dream for me is to see cooperatives and primary producers, foresters, fishers and farmers having a real stake, and rural regional communities having a real stake in those biorefineries, creating social, economic and environmental opportunities for those regions, reinvigorating them, reversing the trend of urbanization we're seeing right across Europe, really invigorating and future-proofing rural economies. That's what I'd love to see. Sorry, I've gone on again. I've hogged that microphone a bit too long. So conscious
Thank you. I would like to here convey one of the preoccupations from the audience. That is that at the moment, a number of regulations in Europe are being dismantled or not implemented, like the Green Claims Directive, we just mentioned it. And so there is concern that with this current context, it might be difficult to generate a demand. So indeed, because we know companies, they need to have clarity on what they can claim, etc. Christian, can you say a few things on this, and how do you see this challenge?
Yeah, I love you too. And I'm sure Valeria as well. I think maybe we are mixing several things here. It's like what you also described there, is really the vision for 2050, where we want to go. And this should be a bioeconomy when we probably won't have an ETS anymore, because by that the fossil fuels will have been done. So we need to find another way how to ensure the sustainability of our feedstocks, of our forest soils, and so on. So, and this may be a completely different financing system than we are looking here now. I think in everything, when you talk about a regulation or there needs to be a compliance system, we are a democracy. So what you need is a majority in the parliament. You need to convince a majority of our member states. So you have an additional client, so to say, in terms of all what you have in the voluntary carbon market. So there is, I think, for all of us still a way to go to convince our policymakers that it's a good idea to have such a market. So we still need to work more on the credibility of the overall system and of the benefits that this will bring to farmers, foresters, and then also within the value chain. So let's talk about the next immediate steps that we can take towards there. So what we want to do is we want to work, now that we have the Scope 3 reporting for the agri-food value chain from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. So we need to see the interplay with the CSCF regulation. And this is something we want to discuss more. We need to see the interplay with SBTi when they come with their final rules on removals. So there are very concrete steps. And I think this is also something we hear from all the big companies, or they want to be in line with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol with SBTi. Under the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, there's now the new climate standards are out for consultation. You'll see a very close link to CSCF. So that's already a good step forward. So and there comes then also this idea of a buyers club. So how can we find a good way how projects can be financed and by more investors, be it within the value chain, vertically from the retailers down to the traders, also horizontally over the crop rotation. What is the interest for buyers outside the value chain to come in? I think peatlands is a prime example. And there's overall interest on that. But how can we make that happen? And also, if we manage over the next months to have a good blueprint of that, and also make it attractive then maybe for local authorities, for regional authorities, to invest into such a landscape report, a supply shed, however you call it. But a bit of a landscape report, I think, is really what can be attractive to, on the one hand, or we need to convince farmers, we need to convince local authorities to invest into that. And then we also need to invest the big agri-food companies, the forestry companies, the packaging companies that use all the products out of the forest, out of agriculture, so also looking into chemicals, buildings, and so on. And then, as well as from outside the value chain, and then is this an attractive package that we can show, okay, this is a financing instrument that can work. So these are the next steps that we need to take within the existing legal framework that we have. And I think there's still a lot of things that we can improve, that we can make happen. And this is, I think, what we should work over the next months. Also, when you talk about the recommendations, what comes out from here, I think there's really several concrete steps that we can take within the existing framework.
In 1 minute, there is a preoccupation about moving into more financial instruments and increasing liquidity of the credits by introducing financial mechanisms. Is it something that is anticipated or at least examined at the moment?
I think, I find it super interesting what would be possible with regard to impact bonds, or how to, that's another way how you could get into patient capital. I think we see a lot of interest from investors that want to invest, I think, in the long term into nature, and it's also, okay, how can we show them the good value of what they invest in? And I think they are also at the very basic level, what CSCF does is a valuation instrument. It shows you the value of more sustainably managed soil and forests. And that, of course, should be very attractive as well as for big investment funds.
Thank you. Sorry, we are a bit late on the time because I would like to move now to the next part of this panel, which is about the connection between the European policy and the CSCF. Lucia, we have seen the evolution of the carbon sink reported in the past years, and we moved significantly from more than 300 megatons to a bit more than 200. So how do we know about these evolutions, and what is your take on how can CSCF and the voluntary carbon market help in correcting this trajectory?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we have been experiencing a decrease of sinks overall. The good news is that we are still a sink, so 6% of the EU emissions are removed from the atmosphere by our land sector, and this sink is driven by forestry. And then also this decrease of sink is driven by the forest sector. And it's because of multiple stressors, I would say. It can be, and it depends also on the area, but mostly due to an increase of impact on natural disturbances, which is pest diseases, but also fires. There is an increase of harvesting. Our forests are becoming more mature, and then they are naturally harvested, and there is an increase of harvest, and this results also in emissions. There is a decrease of growth rates that has been experienced, especially in the northern part of Europe. So all these different components, and an increase, of course, of forest fires, if I haven't said, but okay. So all these components concur into this decrease of sink. We are experiencing, on average, like 30% less sink in the last 10 years in comparison to the previous 10 years. So it's a steady decrease, although we were experiencing an increase, and then this started to decrease. So how we can, how CRCF can contribute to this? Of course, the main tool that we have for tracking our policy at the moment is the inventory. The inventory, and of course, this is the inventory is the basis on which the accounting is done. So a member state can check if it's achieving its own target using the inventory data that are, and the inventory needs to capture this information, these activities that are ongoing on the ground. And of course, these activities should achieve a size that is big enough to be captured at country level. So the first thing is the size of the scale of the implementation of the activities that should be sufficiently large to be captured by the inventory before to be seen. There is another component, the capacity of the inventory itself to capture these activities. Not all inventories are considering the sink deriving by the trees on woody biomass on grassland, for example. They assume that it's in a steady state, so they consider, but it's like no fluxes. So this, if we want to invest in agroforestry and to see the results of this agroforestry system, we need also to enable the inventories to capture these trees outside forests. Also the land management and especially agricultural management sometimes is not fully captured. It's considered again as in equilibrium. So the inventory should be able to see, and on forest management as well, probably most of, half of the member states, they use inventory, which is a very powerful tool to assess their foresting. But of course, the inventory they are done not repeatedly, but it's every 5-10 years. So it's you lose a little bit what is going year by year between this. So, I mean, we need this improvement, let's say, of the inventory to go side by side also to the implementation and to scale up the activities to be.
But is there already a plan to connect CRCF and the registry and the inventories?
Yes, of course. It's but it goes. I mean, I just want to clarify that one carbon credit generated by the CRCF is not equal to 1 ton of CO2 that is accounted in the inventory. So this, because there are different systems. The carbon credit is generated through, let's say, a monitoring methodology that compares the effect of your project with a baseline. So this is the method, no? It's the delta between what would be done without the project and the additional benefits. While the LULUCF inventories, they capture what the atmosphere sees, and most likely only the component, which is not always the case, the anthropogenic component. But in theory, it should be the anthropogenic component of what the atmosphere sees. So it's like, so there are two different animals, but at the end of the story, what they are looking at, it's the increase of carbon in the soil. So the increase of carbon of the stock change of the. So there is a lot of potential to use the data that are collected, measured at plot level by the CRCF. It could be good, I mean, to use this data for improving the inventory, to increase also the capacity to capture these changes, and then also to improve their modeling, let's say, capacity. And this modeling capacity from the member state could also feed the CRCF with enhanced tools to calculate and lower the monitoring cost. I mean, at the beginning, we saw that one of the problem of the supply chain is also the complexity of the monitoring, the costs of monitoring. So if we manage to activate this positive feedback loop between these two systems, that would be a very powerful public-private, let's say, collaboration.
Thank you.
And
yeah, maybe.
If I may, sorry, just to add, and of course the registry could play a role on that, and we are at the EA very happy to facilitate this together with, of course, GRC and the Commission to facilitate this process.
Do the other panelists see a role there in what they are doing? I'm just question peatlands. They represent quite a large amount of emissions, and they, when we see the emissions from agriculture, cropland, peatlands, in fact, there is a slow decrease also of the emissions. So is this also a trend that is related to already actions being undertaken, or how do you interpret this decrease of the emissions?
There is, yes, actually, if I may add on the trends of the European trends of, yes, grassland and cropland result as a net emission overall. And this is driven mostly due to the drain peatland, which cover like 5%, I think, of the European, so the drain peatland. So this is really a powerful, let's say, mechanism to increase, to lower the emissions in these two sectors, but also the representativeness of other practices is not fully there. I mean, let's say that the peatland component has a higher weight in terms of, capacity of the inventory to capture these emissions. There is a decrease. I don't know if you. There is a small decrease. Mostly, there is a tendency of agriculture to be converted into grassland overall in Europe, but it depends from area to area, so most likely is also driven by that.
Anna, you want also to say a few things about the challenge in reducing the peatlands and at scale?
Well, what I wanted to say is that I'm happy that we talked about the role of the peatlands in the land sector reporting, because if we say overall we have a sink, well, that's because of forestry, but you don't look into detail where the peatlands are making up 5% of these emissions, where there is a lot of potential to act and to actually get an even bigger sink. And I think historically peatlands have been somehow neglected a bit in that, because we were overall happy it's a sink. So yeah, I think so I'm happy we touched upon it.
Yes. Okay, I see that we are running progressively out of time. Is there any final comments or point you would like to make, Thomas?
Well, I could comment on the forest part, and that represents the sink. And when it comes to sustainable forest management, we have to remember that we are talking about optimal management. We are not maximizing things, because maximizing means that you are not considering economical factors. So by that said, it means that sustainability and profitability goes hand in hand. And I think that starting to put the market price on what has before been co-benefits only, but like now the CRCF is introducing a possible market value of capturing carbon. It can increase the profitability. And by increased profitability in the forest sector, it also means that you change the balance point between what is optimal today and what will be optimal tomorrow. And you can invest more in all different stages of your cropping system. So even, if the forest as such is an important contributor to the carbon sink, it doesn't mean that it has to go in the wrong direction. If the financial incentives are there, it can easily go in the other direction, or whatever direction. It will all depend on profitability, because forestry is a business. And I think this tool we have to understand. If we make it more profitable to manage your forests sustainable and with long-term goals to produce several different goals integrated in the same cropping system, I am really optimistic, because I know the foresters. I think that you know the farmers, And it's not the skills at the landowner level that is the limiting factor. They know how to do this. So what we have to give them is financial incentives and the direction. And we will see a completely different future.
Thank you. In this final part, and you will start, Anneli, we just would like to give you the floor to give us maybe a final sentences or final sentence or two on your hope and how you imagine the future and or what is important for the future. Anneli, if you
Sorry. Yeah, but just in relation to what Thomas said, I think I see it as if you could split it into two things. You have the technical part, the biological part, and if you look at it in a technical perspective, carbon farming can definitely contribute. And we said that with the carbon sink, but you also have the market side, and there the technical aspect is not, or the technical potential is not enough. So unless the high integrity activities find a way to be financeable, it won't be long term, which we all are looking for, I guess. So I think this is why we are welcoming the Buyers Club so with open arms, just to be this stepping stone, maybe you could say. But we, and also these types of initiatives are so, on the demand side is so important, and it matters a lot, because it's always hard to be the first one, but as long as you get one or two good cases, I think we can really get the bigger mass to follow. So that felt like a more positive ending for me at least. And John, you were talking about maybe the human mechanism or the human logic. We say one thing and we do another, and I think we have to bring as well the logic of the market or business logic. When times are hard economically, these types of, as long as you want to keep it voluntary, this type of investments could, yeah, you won't prioritize them. So we need to find a way to build a market that can withstand scrutiny as well as economic downturns.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Anna?
Yes. So the carbon farming piece of the CSCF is supposed to be launched by July, August. So, and standards can then also soon start applying for recognition. So let's say second half of this year, the CRCF will be live then also for peatland projects. And yeah, we're excited about that because as a project developer, we have our first pilot sites in place. We are having a large pipeline of projects that will be CRCF compliance. So yeah, we're just waiting for it to be launched and then to be actually also among the first ones to apply it. And then let's see once we have the supply side going, what the demand will say. So yeah, we're excited and yeah, hopeful that it will turn out well.
Yeah, and we have seen that supply and demand, of course, go hand in hand, so one can support the other. We hope that this will happen. Lucia.
Yeah, yeah. Looking ahead, like in a distant future, with where, like my dream would be to have a spatially explicit MRV system at the country level that can also facilitate and support the monitoring at plot level. We are not there yet. We can. There is a long way to there, but let's start with at least with this kind of exchange of the information and data support of these two framework, the inventory and the CRCF. We don't need to. I mean, we need to have a snowball effect. Let's start. And as Jim Pellman, which is I don't know if you author of the IPCC and the father actually of the LULUCF regulation and IPCC rules. So he always keeps saying a snowball doesn't need to be perfect to roll down the hill. So let's kick it off. No?
John?
I think it's been quite eloquently covered already by other panelists. I think that was a great analogy, actually. The snowball doesn't have to be perfect, and I think we just need to get doing. And the one thing we can't leave behind in all of this is the human element. You know, it's the human element that will create the supply. It's the human element that will create the demand. It's the human element that will, you know, those fluctuations in the economic cycle and the lows and the highs. It's the human element that will level that out. It's human behavior. That it's really about connecting people and projects and aggregating this and learning by doing, which I think we are about to do. I think we have been doing, we're about to do in a very, very practical way, and to really deploy what has worked well already. And I think maybe my vision of the future earlier on was probably a bit further into the future. I would like it to be closer, obviously. But I think if we look at those certification schemes that are already going up and going, such as guarantees of origin, for instance, for biomethane, and how they have created up to 20% of the value in terms of the annual revenues for some project operators. How can we replicate that with carbon farming and CRCF, and how can that contribute to the bottom line and contribute to the behavioural change, which is the human element that we all need to get this off the ground? So I would like to say we've done the science well, we've done the policy well. Let's get with the human piece now and get it moving, get it working.
Thank you, Thomas.
I think just to save some time, I just echo the former speaker.
Thank you. Christian, a few words to...
Yeah, maybe I want to draw 3 operational conclusions. I think based also on the feedback that we got during the summit, I think we feel quite confident to go ahead with our carbon farming methodologies and to propose the delegated regulation to the Parliament and to the Member States for scrutiny. We'll have one more expert group meeting to discuss all the good feedback and the constructive feedback that we got, probably end of April. The second one, maybe also looking forward maybe already to the next carbon farming summit. So we have the harmonized methodologies, but I think we need to work really on the modeling, on the quantification to reduce the uncertainty. We need robust models that work very easily, very simply, both for the farmers and to which also the buyers can then rely on. I think this will be key for the success of what we will be doing. So also very much looking forward to ideas how we can do that, how we can train those models on data, and I think that's a common effort for all of us. The third one is, yes, as Kurt also said in the beginning, how can we develop a blueprint for this buyers club? How can we make it an attractive financing structure for which at local regional level, for example, public authorities would go in? That's attractive for farmers in a region. I think this landscape approach, supply shed approach can really be a very good starting point, because then it's visible for everyone what's happening there. And it can be emission reductions, carbon removals from the soils, from mineral soils, but also from peatlands, maybe agroforestry. And the credits that come out of that can be attractive both for within the value chain, and if we get all the players within the value chain to finance it, but also for outside the value chain, in particular for the rewetting of peatlands. So any ideas that you have, how that can be done, how we can involve then also public funding, be it at the EU level, be it at the level of member states, and in particular in Ireland, there are already some very good ideas how that can be done, also with financial guarantees. And if we can discuss that then at our CRCF days, 20th of May, 21st of May, that would of course be super helpful for us as we then go into our proposal for the climate targets by the end of this year, and to be able to present a voluntary carbon farming market as a key tool to achieve our 2040 targets.
Thank you, and this is already the program that we need to take on. I think we have finished this panel. I would like to give a round of applause to our panelists. And so thanks a lot. I think we move to the final. So the next session with Tristano.
Thank you, Daniel. If this works, hello. There is always a little bit of delay between. Hello. Now, okay. Thank you, Daniel, for the panel. It was interesting, well managed, and a nice way to close this. Well, I'm actually have the honor to open this closing session, and hopefully it will be quite dynamic. We'll have a few people coming up and down the stage, but also short. So first of all, thank you for having endured almost 2 days and a half. But in fact, I'm very pleased. I'm not sure if you have been kind with me, but every time I asked for feedbacks, everybody has mentioned that it's a very active and engaging and participatory summit. And of this, it's also I share this feeling. Even if you go out now, there are still people engaged in deep conversation after 2 days and a half. That I think it's a reflection of the passion of this ecosystem. And the passion of this ecosystem is kind of the fertile ground that also allowed this summit to grow in what it is now. I don't know how many people have engaged online, but we have had more than 700 attendance. So it's a great success and an honor for me to represent all the team and the people that made this possible. So I'll just, from my side, I'll conclude with a few credits and acknowledgements. As I mentioned in the opening session, the summit has been brought to you by the Credible Project. So this is an Horizon Europe project, so it's funded by the Research Executive Agency. And if you don't know the Research Executive Agency, this is the place to look at for funding innovation. I think I read yesterday, I hope I don't say this wrong, but they manage for 26 and 27, they manage a budget of 17 billion. So this means hundreds of projects that are fueling EU's innovation and are feeding the policy stream as well. So it's a great agency. And also they support, obviously, the implementation of the process of the projects. And I have to really thank our project officer, which I hope is around here, Ivana Oceano, that has handled us well and has allowed us to work with passion, and hopefully this outcome, which is the summit, is a reflection of our commitment. But also, and obviously, the Credible Project in general. So this is a project that was also funded by the mission, in the framework of the mission. So we are part of that ecosystem. So thanks for the mission. But also, and particularly because all the partners have been involved. These are just a quick list of the institutions that have taken part in this project from the beginning. But behind this institution, there are people. We just made a picture yesterday. This is some of us, not all of us, but I would say most of us. And these are the people that have, from the beginning, worked to create this. But also, I'd like to thank those people some of those that are standing there, the organization committee, so the people that have been behind all the logistic from the team at Climate Kick, Colombe, Seth, which I think is there, and Dora, which I'm not sure if he's here, but yeah, is also. And also my people, Leandro, Fernando have taken some picture, and Yolanda, which is behind all the graphics. And also, but we'll go into that in more detail when we thanks the co-host and all the sponsor and so on. But at the moment, just a quick reminder that I chose this picture because this was taken in the first summit, and it feels like we were occupying a school. It probably was a school. And but in a way that reflects that participatory process that from the beginning we tried to have, and we kept that momentum going, and I can still see that this is part of our soul and the way we do things, and I hope you appreciate, and the feeling I have is that you do, so thank you. Last, from my part, and I ask Leandro to help me here, I want to publicly acknowledge what are the work package leaders, which if you participate in a research project, you know the work package leader have obviously a bigger role to play in the management and generating the outcome expected. And I want to invite them on stage. We have prepared a little, please join me. We have prepared a little gift to acknowledge their, just all together, you can come in, their support, their work. It's thanks to them that, I mean, we have done probably 30 meetings in the last 6 months to organize this. Obviously not always by ourselves alone. There have been the local organization committee, but also a member of the commission. The presentation is gone, but I don't know. For me, I want a round of applause to this team. And thank you. And then lastly, yeah, I want to give the floor to Daniel, which has also an important message to close the more like work part of this summit, and I'll get back to you after his words. Yes, next.
You just click. Yes. So this, what we have tried to do in these summits is to progressively create a database of recommendations. So each session is proposing a number of recommendations. And these are then in a database first that you can click on the QR code. There are at the moment 165 recommendations that you can screen by around 40 different keywords if you want to work on see on the baseline. So there is much more than what you see on screen. When you click on one of these recommendations, you will see a whole description of the rationale of what is recommended, etc. And so this is also available in a document which is on the Zenodo database or of the for the European project. So here it's more a document, so you cannot screen the recommendations by topic, but you can download all the recommendations that came out of the summit last year. So this is yeah, what we have been doing, and what we will continue to do. So each session has to come up with 2 to 3, I don't want to have too many because last year it was a bit tricky, but 2 to 3 strong recommendations, trying to build on the recommendations of the previous year. And this work will continue. We will continue to support the development of this database in the coming years, because we want to move really from the knowledge sharing to what are recommendations for action, and then who needs to take action. You will see that in the database you can have also a description of who is supposed to take action on the different recommendations. So this is what we are progressively building, and that will continue to build in the future. I stop here. I assume I give you the floor back. Okay.
So last part, and she's running away. She's running away. Stop it. Anyway, no. Before don't leave. I also want to thank Maria Florencia Ribeiro, who has been representing Confagricoltura Veneto, but she has been the foot on the ground in the organization of the summit. So thank you. And then I want to, last words from myself, then I'll leave the stage. You can see I have another present here, and it's unfortunate for me that we made them, these are handmade in Murcia. I brought 6 in the luggage, and it was an adventure, but I couldn't bring more. Otherwise, I would have I would have preferred to share this with more people. But I have one left, and this is to acknowledge another person that has contributed to this summit. But it's also a moment, and I know here maybe the research executive agency is shaking because we are breaking a bit of the protocol. As mentioned, the summit is managed by the Credible project, but Credible finishes in a couple of months. So the next summit will not be managed by the Credible project. So my role as coordinator is finished here, but the summit goes on because there is something new coming, and for this I invite on stage Sonia from the EIT Food. So I'll pass on the baton to Sonia, and she will explain why.
Thank you so much. A baton made of pottery. So thank you so much. And indeed, it's been a great pleasure to work with this team and now take over. And hopefully, we have this hard task to keep up the standard. This has been a fantastic summit. I've heard a lot of positive feedback. And I do think that the confirmation of the Credible project for 3 more years shows also the value that this team and this project has produced for DigiClima and the entire carbon farming community. So some of the key members of Credible Consortium have been confirmed. Of course, that we have complemented the skill set with other experts to integrate the new topics that are coming, like, for instance, livestock, peatland, landscape. We heard a lot about landscape. And so we will continue to respond to the trends and the demand and work with all of you with incredible expertise, professionalism, and passion, indeed, that was in this room today, but also that accompanied us for many months. We received the incredible number of 275 contributions, so you made a huge part of the program, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. As Tristano said, we had basically weekly meetings for the last 6 months, and the Credible team has been joined by myself, representing EIT Food, and Maria Florencia Ribeiro, representing Confagricoltura Veneto. But today we also would like to have a final message from Confagricoltura from Anna Tretenero, Vice President. She wanted to say a few words to close also the summit.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, everyone. It has been a real pleasure to participate to this meeting, to be co-host as Confagricoltura Veneto. And being a passionate no-till farmer, I've been dying to see something like this, and to be, I'm very proud of the fact that steps are really moving forward in a direction where farmers will be rewarded, not just in an economic point of view, but also from the credibility of the community for all the benefits that every day, if we do things properly, and conservation agriculture, no-till, is one of those, are providing to the community. So I really would love that this is the starting point for a new relationship between farmers and the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And of course, other thanks are in order to our key sponsors that made this possible. So starting from Veneto Agricoltura, that brought us here in this wonderful region. BASF, Mars, and Lilas for Soils, that has been already mentioned during this conference, is a Living Lab project funded by Mission Soil that focuses on carbon farming. So thank you very much. We will continue to need sponsors in the future, so you will hear from us. And of course, a big thank also to our exhibitors that have been in our foyer for the 3 days. So thank you so much. And indeed, this has been a great co-hosting experience working with this team, and I can only recommend that you put yourself forward for it. Many of you might have been here from the very beginning, from the picture that Tristano showed, and witnessed the growth of this event, starting from a smaller, very much science and policy-focused event in Valencia to today, that we are 700 people representing a much broader ecosystem around carbon farming. So we will soon publish the next open call for co-hosting. So please stay tuned in our social media. And then also, as I said, we will continue working with sponsors and exhibitors to sustain the growth of this event. So indeed, there's been a steady growth from 200 to 700 people that will require some support. And of course, I mentioned the great contribution that you all provided, and would like to hear from you to keep improving how we are structuring the summit. As I said, the summit evolved quite a bit in the last 3 years, and we would like to keep evolving and improving with your support, taking you all along with us in this journey. So these were my final words, and yeah, we look forward to see you next year then at the Carbon Farming 2027. Thank you.